A few weeks ago, we talked about the possibility of getting 3 new modular buildings at the end of 2024 and into 2025. And last week, the first shoe dropped when Lego announced the X Mansion. Now today, Lego announced the Botanical Gardens from the Ideas line, and that is the second one that we were thinking could be modular compatible. Now, while it isn't officially modular compatible, I think it's going to work much better in your city than the X Mansion. Why? In part because of all of the details and incredible building techniques, which we will break down in this video. But at the end, I'm going to tell you why there's a huge hesitation for why I and some other people might be buying this set. Let's dive in. Here's a quick overview of the set. You get 3,800 pieces, 12 minifigs, 2 32x32 base plates, a few birds, a dog, a cat, a lot of other things in there, and all of that will cost you about $330 US. That's right, for the same cost as the X Mansion. You get 700 more pieces and 2 more minifigs, but more on that in a little bit. The building is long, longer than any modular building and longer than most sets you might have, with the exception of Rivendell or the Concord or something like those. You have a main entrance that opens up into a large room with plenty of plant varieties. To the right is a coffee shop that opens into a little outdoor eating area, and to the left is an arid garden section. In the front, you have a partial sidewalk that goes almost the entire length from one side to the other. Now, on one side is a large autumnal tree, while on the other is a fountain, which honestly looks like it blends in just a bit too much with everything else going on. There is a balcony that overlooks the main gardens, and the building's 3 main roof sections all lift up. A wall section for each wing lifts up to increase interior accessibility, and there are lots of mini builds throughout the set that add to its ambiance. As we analyze the set, I want you to keep in mind 2 things. The first is the release of the X Mansion, which will coincide with the release of this set. Both of them are dropping on November 1st. The second is the existence of the Friends Botanical Garden, which came out in 2023, but is still available for purchase. Again, keep those in mind as we go through all of the details of the set and think about whether or not it's worth $330. What are some of the building techniques that pop out to me? Well, one that immediately jumped out was the tree, as the dark orange and red autumnal colors pop against the largely white structure. It's important to note Lego has upped its tree building game over the past few years, and this one uses a drill piece and different stems to fill out the foliage. In some ways, it's very similar to the tree from the medieval town square. The dark orange leaves aren't super common. This is the 7th time we're getting the 6x5 leaf variety in a set. If you have the Friends Botanical Garden, some elements will feel the same, such as the prevalent use of sand green windows and arches spanning the section dividers inside. One key difference in detail is the 2 stud thick wall, which allows for more architectural detailing on the exterior. See, whereas the Friends version used snot bricks and tiles to shape the area outside the windows, here we have a lot of candle pieces built into the walls to make the windows pop. There's more detailing along the roofline in this set. We have a consistent row of snot bricks, rotated heart tiles, and 1x2 double curved slopes in white. Note how at the corners you have some 1x1 round plates for detailing. It's not super complex, but it is nicely done. There's also a trellis along the right side exterior wall of the center section. Again, nothing too complicated, but note that we're getting a reddish brown arched gate door. Despite being around for over 20 years, we don't get a lot of those in Lego sets these days, and this is only the 3rd time we're getting one in this color. Some other details that I appreciate include the hose set up in the back, the subtlety of the entrance steps, the handrail leading up those steps, the rows of flowers that have what look to be new tulip molds, the nougat line that separates the roses from the sidewalk, and the dark tan foundation that uses 1x4 snot bricks, which aren't too common in that color, and some snot tiles like what you have in the X Mansion. Let's talk about the roof construction before we move on to the interior. The original Ideas submission used a 6x6x9 transparent clear corner panel, but Lego went a slightly different way here. It looks like we're getting a new 5x5x3 corner panel with some 6x5x3 curved panels along the sides. Now, the latter of these are new this year and appeared in transparent clear in the Heart Lake Hospital. There are white curved slopes in between each panel on the lower section of the roof, along with white plates and tiles connecting everything into a sturdy build. Some triangle slopes are used for crenellations across the top of the roof. I know some fans really liked the height and prominence of the original submission, but given the length of this building, I think a shorter roof makes sense, but I can understand why so many people liked the original submission. Of course, while many of us love exterior detail, there are quite a few expectations for the interior of the set. One holder from the original submission is the spiral staircase, albeit done a little bit differently than the original submission, and that is made from 1x4x1 lattice fences. This is a brilliant technique, and I'm glad Lego utilized some of that technique in this set. We also get this fantastic tree that dominates the central interior section, much like the tree that we see in the Friends Botanical Garden set that has all the butterflies on it. Importantly, we do see other plants here as well, although it's not quite as packed as the original Ideas submission. You do get various mushrooms, a second tree that uses sand green bamboo leaf pieces for just the 5th time. These are placed upside down on dark tan seaweed pieces, which are themselves appearing in this color for the 3rd time. Perhaps my favorite plant building technique is the use of the red epaulets to make this flower right here, and then there are these upside down cool yellow crown pieces that we're getting in a set for just the 2nd time. There are a lot of incredible pieces here, including some brand new ones and some recolors, so buckle in, this is going to be a fast one. I've already mentioned a few interesting pieces, but it looks like we're getting some new rose petal pieces in green and lavender. Then there are these stem pieces here in the front that look to be new, a green pumpkin for the first time, we've only seen that in bright light green, a dark tan bird for the first time, a cool yellow bird with black eyes for just the 2nd time, 1x2 rounded plates in medium nougat for the 1st time, and the 1x6x6 door frame in sand green also for the 1st time. On top of all of that, you get over 70 sand green 1x2x3 windows, 7 1x2x2 sand green windows, tons of tiles, including the 1x2 round variety, especially in medium nougat, and tons of plant pieces. Now, this doesn't have a lot of normal bricks to it, but it is definitely an excellent parts pack. You get 12 minifigs in this set, and they range in age and in their attire. The staff wear overalls, of which we get 2 varieties, dark brown and a lighter color. 2 kids are included, along with 7 adults. I don't think we're getting any new torsos here, but it is a nice selection, and we get some solid accessories, including a black umbrella and headphones. All told, some fans might want more minifigs, but keep in mind 12 isn't too bad. It's certainly better than the X Mansion in this regard, and in line with other sets of this size. Seeing as I've been gushing about the pieces, the building techniques, and the overall aesthetic of the set, now is the time where I'm going to tell you, if you have the money, make sure you go buy the set, right? Well, it's a little complicated. I think we need to keep 3 bits of context in mind as we evaluate whether or not we're going to buy the set. The first is the original idea submission. Now, the actual set is longer, it's shorter, it has, I think, different types of architectural details, and it doesn't quite have the same density on the inside as the original submission. Those are all key components because fans definitely like the original submission. That's why I got 10,000 supporters on Lego Ideas. On the other hand, I think Lego is looking at the success of their botanical gardens theme, their plants and all that stuff, and keeping that in mind and going with a formula that works and scaling it up to a massive building. So I think there are some pros and cons when you compare it to this, but I can understand some people that like this a lot more, and I kind of do like it more than the original submission compared to those who don't. The second bit of context is, of course, the X Mansion, which drops on November 1st, the same day as this. Now, if you are an X-Men fan, there's no really convincing you whether or not to buy that set based on the botanical gardens. But if you are a modular fan or you're a fan of Lego buildings in general, you have 2 sets coming out that are $330 US at the exact same time. Now, in analyzing the images from the X Mansion and seeing some photos online and some early reviews, I can tell you this set, the Botanical Gardens, has significantly more detail. The exterior detail is much, much better than what we get with the X Mansion. On top of that, this building is bigger. It's going to carry more weight, and I think it's better proportioned for a modular city. In fact, there are some photos online right now that show you how the X Mansion looks with the other Marvel modulars, and I gotta say, it looks pretty underwhelming. Now, this is where we get the trade-off that I talked about in that video, which I'll link somewhere up here, and that is the amount of detail you put on the exterior is going to limit what you put on the interior and vice versa, if you're trying to keep costs down, and by down, it's a very relative term here. The Botanical Gardens invests quite a bit in the exterior and in the grounds of the Botanical Gardens. They don't put as much in the interior, which is why you see some pretty open spaces for minifigs to stand, walk around, and enjoy the gardens. There's still plenty of plants, but it's not quite as dense as you might want it to be. Again, they're putting some of those pieces on the exterior, whereas in the X Mansion, they put them in the interior, creating a pretty big divide in terms of the detail you see in the exterior build. The third bit of context that is important to note here is the existence of the Friends Botanical Gardens. That set is $80 US. It comes with roughly 1,000 pieces, and there are plenty of mocks on rebrickable.com, including one from our own channel that combine multiple copies of that set into one large Botanical Gardens. Now, ours is an enclosed building that's not modularized, but it has all like 4 wings and a fully enclosed dome, and I think it looks fantastic. And if you want to check out those instructions, you can in the description down below. But what's important to note is that you could buy 2 or 3 copies of these, get some instructions off of Rebrickable, and for a significant less price than $330 US, have a nice modular compatible building. After all, one of the things that was true of the original submission is that it was modular compatible. This one is not. One thing I'm thinking about doing is taking that row of flowers, moving it behind the sidewalk, pushing that sidewalk forward, and then adding maybe a little bit of my own pieces to create the sidewalk. And then on the sides, finding some way to add in maybe a little barrier that's 1 brick high or 1 brick and a tile, and maybe incorporate some trellises, kind of like in the Jazz Club set, to add some way to modularize with the Technic pins. You can add maybe some small walkways, cobblestone, depending on how involved you want to get. So is this worth $330 US? In a vacuum, I would say yes. If we didn't have a lot of other buildings like this, if we didn't have the modular line, if we didn't have some of the other stuff that Lego's released over the last 5 to 10 years, sure. But that's not the case. We have all this other context coming into it. I think it makes it very difficult for people to spend $330 here when you could spend $160, $240 US to get 2 or 3 copies of the Friends Botanical Gardens and get a fantastic build and save some money. And so I'm on the fence when it comes to the value of this particular set. I know that a lot of fans are feeling the same way, whether it's value or whether it's just a little bit of disappointment from the comparison to the original submission. Overall, the set looks fantastic. I think it's gonna be really impressive if you see it at the Lego store, and if you see some people that have it, gosh, I think it's gonna be fantastic. But $330 worth of fantastic? I'm not sure. Are you gonna get this set? Comment down below. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and always remember to keep building together.